I'm Dr. Azadeh Shirazi, a board-certified dermatologist, so I wanted to dedicate an entire video to this subject, sagging skin, sagging jowls. I see people in my office for this concern every single day, and they range in age from the 20s, which by the way, none of them have sagging skin, all the way up to 60s and 70s and beyond. And this is not to make you depressed because it seems to be a depressing topic, but I do want to remind you that aging is a blessing. We are fortunate to develop saggy jowls and saggy skin. It is a privilege to age, which brings me to say, stop being mean to yourselves. You guys are looking at your videos, your photos, in terrible lighting at the worst angles. So what is happening when we start to see this jowling effect? I love analogies, so let's look at our face as we would a bed. I know it sounds weird, but just like the frames of a bed, our facial bones act as the scaffold, the structure by which our fat, our muscles, our skin lies on top of. So the bed frame is like the bony structures of our face. The mattress, which gives it the cushioning, the plumpness, are the muscles and the fat that make up our faces. And then the bedding or the draping is our skin. And all of those elements are affected by aging. What happens to the scaffold, the bony frame of the bed as we age? Well, the skeletal orbit around our eyes starts to get wider, so you lose support of all that cushioning there. Our cheekbones start to get flatter and thinned out. Our mandible, our jawline gets smaller and starts to recede back. The jawline angle starts to become more acute. We lose definition of our jawline, and that is one of the bigger contributors of sagging is that scaffold that's holding everything up. A lot of people don't think about bone loss, in the face as part of aging. And what about the cushion, the plumpness, the fat, the muscle also shrink, particularly starting in our early 30s. We see these essential fat pads become smaller. And that's the cushioning, that's the mattress for the bed. Connecting the mattress and the cushioning are these ligaments, these facial ligaments that start to get stretched with age, particularly one that runs from the corner of the eyes down to the jawlines does start to get stretched. And so it's not holding the fat pads like it used to, tight and high. And then lastly, our skin loses collagen, loses elasticity, gets stretched out. All of these factors contribute to the sagging jowls. I can tell you there's 3 phases of this, mild, moderate, and severe, where it becomes more and more prominent as we age. And the first phase happens generally in the early 30s. 33, 34, people start to say, they just wake up one day and think, I look older. And in this phase, it's mostly volume loss. So we're losing essential fat pads in the temples, in the medial cheeks. We're also losing fat around our eyes. I call this phase 1. Phase 2 happens in our early 40s, late 30s, and this is when we start to see more significant bony changes as well as fat and skin changes. You start to notice your skin is thinner, you have a little bit more extra loose skin, particularly in this area. And then the last phase is really in our late 40s, early 50s is when we start to see the ligaments start to stretch and that muscle starts to really diminish and thin out. The bone structure changes are more significant, particularly because of the fluctuation in hormones that we see, particularly in women because estrogen plays such a big role in bone resorption and skin collagen and elasticity. And then we have this shifting of our fat pads. Certain fat areas start to get fuller, like some of the fat pads down here can get more full, fat pads down below the chin area can become more full, accentuating the jowling, and also fat pads around the eyes, again, are now more significantly lost. And mind you, genetics, your lifestyle, all the interventions that you do over many, many years can make a difference on how fast this process accelerates. So these are all the changes that we're seeing in the different phases of jowling. And the treatments are geared towards all of them. In the first phase, the early 30s, when we start to see volume loss, fillers that are hyaluronic acid based can really help replace the lost volume, particularly like I pointed out in the temples, around the eyes to give it that support, on the cheek area, the jawline. There's a ligament that runs down from the eyes down to the jowls. Supporting that ligament with volume replacement can add some structure to the face and help with lifting and supporting the jowl area. Now that only works for a period of time before all the other changes set in. And there are a range of fillers that dermatologists can choose from. Some of them are more firm, more robust, have greater lifting power, such as Voluma and Volux. Others are finer, better suited for areas around the eyes. Some are very hydrophilic, meaning they draw a lot of water to certain areas. And those you should try to avoid, because holding on to water can actually make you look more puffy and cause lymphatic fluid just to accumulate in this area. There are also collagen stimulators known as biostimulation, such as Sculptra, where it's injected into the skin and the particles dissolve, but they stimulate your own skin, your own body to form collagen around these particles that then add volume and help with thickening of the skin. Now there's different ways to use it. If you use it in a more dilute fashion, more superficially, Sculptra can actually thicken the skin. So it helps combat the thinning skin that happens with aging. But it can also be used as a global lifter to add global volume to the face, particularly if you're athletic and you just have a hard time holding on to volume in your face. Other ways to replace volume is fat transfer or fat grafting, where we take fat from other areas of the body and use them in the face to, again, restore that cushioning that we lose, that mattress that gets lost with the aging process. What about just skin tightening? Because the other thing that happens is our skin gets stretched, or we lose muscle tone. Well, skin tightening treatments that use radiofrequency, ultrasound, they can help firm the skin. And I would suggest that once a year, once every couple of years. Things like Soft Wave, Ultherapy. We have something in the office called Excelus Ultra 360. It uses radiofrequency and ultrasound. Thermage. These are great at maintaining your skin tone. What about facial threads? And this is something I do in the office, but there are some drawbacks with threads. Threads are these dissolvable sutures that are placed under the skin. They grab tissue in the jowl area. We usually use 4 along this area. They grab tissue and then they can help reposition the skin. The problem is they're temporary and they form scar tissue around the thread, and that's how it kind of anchors the thread in place. You don't want to overdo it because you don't want to have too much scar tissue built up in your face, because then if you want to do a facelift down the line, it could be problematic. Now you can do them periodically, but just know the drawbacks are that they are temporary. Some people have better tissue for the threads to hold on to than others. And if you have thin skin, I would stay away from doing threads because sometimes you can actually see the threads underneath the skin. You're more likely to run into problems. So it's not for everybody. Now the threads do stimulate collagen similar to Sculptra, so they can help add volume to the face, but be careful as these changes are non-reversible. And then lastly, the skin. The skin loses collagen, elasticity, and this is where lasers come in. So resurfacing lasers like the CO2 laser or the halo laser, they get your skin to form a new healthy skin with more collagen, more elastin. They help thicken your dermis, and they're very effective at firming and maintaining your skin tone. I love the profractional laser and the halo laser. You can also do microneedling. That helps with texture. You can do RF microneedling, but you have to be careful. You don't want to melt your fat, because that needle that goes in that then gives off heat, it is very operator dependent. So things like Morpheus 8 can penetrate 7-8 millimeters deep into the skin and potentially, melt your fat. So you don't want to lose the cushioning, but you do want to tighten the skin. So again, it's not that Morpheus 8 is a bad treatment, but it comes with some risks. So you have to be cautious of that. There are also now treatments like Ellacor, which remove excess skin. They use a technology that is microcoring. So it removes cores of loose skin and then allows your body to heal, and that skin is tighter, and you may need several sessions of that depending on your response to that. But the cores are removed without leaving a scar behind. I have to admit though, when I see the videos, it looks very gruesome and very painful, but it is a newer technology. It's something that you can consider. I prefer laser resurfacing because I think it does a better job of tightening the skin. So those are things that you can do in the office. What about things that you can do at home? Well, I'm gonna say this. The most important thing is gonna be sun protection, because we know that UV rays are the biggest contributors to premature skin aging. And I mean, just take a look at this photo. This is a truck driver who one side of the face faced the window, the driving side. The other side of his face was shielded because he drove a truck for 30 years. And so you can see the difference in the sagging of the two different areas. I even sometimes notice it on myself where, the driving side, the side that's exposed to the windows, really ages differently than the other side. So sun protection, UV protection, even just visible light, visible light from our screens, our phones, the TV, all of that plays a role and can, not only degrade your collagen, but, penetrate deep enough to affect the skin structures. You can also use anti-aging creams, particularly ones with retinoids in it, not only stimulate collagen by like 300%, but also preserve your collagen, boost your circulation. And so retinoids are huge in terms of keeping your skin toned. And these changes are seen over decades. People that have been on retinoids for, years and years and years are just going to have better skin tone than people who used it sporadically or didn't really use it much. So consistency is really key. The results are cumulative. And the next one, I'm kind of shocked I'm going to say this, but lymphatic drainage. Remember we talked about using a lot of hyaluronic acid fillers can cause fluid retention and can cause, almost worsening of the jowls here. That's because lymphatic fluid tends to accumulate here. Particularly at the end of the day, you may notice your jowling is worse, probably because you've been upright and now the fluid is collecting down here. So if you guys sit here and just give yourself a lymphatic massage like this, moving the fluid out of this area, you will see an improvement in your jawline, in your jowls. That's probably why you see these videos on social media where the girls using the gua sha super aggressively and the J roller super aggressively, and they're like, look how snatched and sculpted the side of my face is. Well, she's kind of right, because she moved all that lymphatic fluid out. So now nothing is kind of weighing this area down. Unfortunately, it doesn't last very long. It probably lasts like an hour, maybe 2 hours. What about at-home devices? We know that LED lights are all the rage right now. Red light helps with collagen boosting. But what about this device that I just received? It's called MediLift. It is a muscle stimulator. I haven't actually used it, but I'm trying it out this week, so I'll report back to you. But muscle tone is one of the things that we lose. So possibly using this mask to electrically stimulate your muscles can help add that cushioning effect, that firming, lifting effect that we see. There was actually an article published, I believe it was in the New York Times, but it showed how people that do face yoga, that really exercise their muscles, like in the cheeks, after several months or weeks, they do tend to have a more lifted appearance, because muscle tone, again, makes up that bulk, that mattress of the aging bed, if you will. Microcurrent is another one that people use, the new face, which really I think it works the best because it helps with lymphatic drainage, but you have to keep using it. And the thing that we didn't talk about that you can do at home, well, I may have talked about it, but lifestyle. I cannot tell you how important this is. When I look at my videos a few years ago, and I think I look better, I look younger now than I did 3 years ago because I was so stressed. I mean, I started my practice, COVID hit, I was juggling all these things. I was under tremendous amounts of stress, which can affect our sleep, which plays a huge role on sagging and jowling and your overall appearance. So make sure that you are managing that, and don't eat sugar because we know that sugar causes glycation, it binds to molecules and destroys them. Even artificial sugar like Splenda. Try to do intermittent fasting, which is something I've been practicing for many years. And exercise. There are so many reports that not only suggest exercise is great for stress management, but when you do exercise, your muscles release these cytokines and these interleukins that are anti-aging, essentially helping your hormones and playing in your favor, really, in terms of anti-aging purposes. And then making sure your vitamins and supplements, your vitamin D, you're taking calcium, because again, those two really affect your bone structure. Remember, we talked about the frame of the bed, and these don't really cost anything. So just making sure you're taking a multivitamin, you're being good to your body, you're being good to yourself in terms of your lifestyle is really important. Avoid drinking too much alcohol, because again, that leads to buildup of acetaldehyde, which is toxic to so much of our body structures. Thanks guys for tuning in. Don't forget to rate, review, and subscribe, and comment below. Let me know what you want to hear about next.